Hey, folks, this is Joe Vitar, your host of the Hunting Matters podcast, brought to you by the Houston Safari Club Foundation. Thanks so much for joining us again this week. Our guest this week is Ross Melinchuk. Ross is a longtime friend of mine. We met many years ago, and we'll talk about that. He's currently a vice president on the Houston Safari Club Board of Directors, and he is the executive director of SEAFWA, which is Southeastern Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. Is that right, Ross? Is that correct?
You got it. You got it, Joe.
Okay.
Good to see you again.
SEAF was easier.
Yeah.
So what's the animal on the wall behind you there?
That's a South African warthog.
Nice. We're
One of my favorite.
Yeah, there's something about pigs and warthogs. I don't know. I just can't shoot enough of them. But so we're going to talk about you've led a varied and illustrious career over your time. Talk a little bit about your background. So you've spent about 4 decades dealing with natural resources, starting as a wildlife biologist back in Saskatchewan, Canada. What originally drew you to wildlife management as a profession?
I think it was my upbringing, Joe. Grew up in a really small community. Wildlife was as much a part as playing hockey and going to school. So, I grew up with it all around me, and at some point in my formative years, I decided that, hey, I'd love to be a wildlife biologist, and that was sort of took me down a path that's now pushing 5 decades, I guess.
Wow, that's crazy. So you got your start in waterfowl?
Yeah, I would say that's how I got started in this. I worked for a not-for-profit organization in Canada that was focused on waterfowl and wetlands conservation.
Yeah.
Started out doing that during my 12th grade summer.
Oh, wow.
And just kept going from there.
So did you know anything about the word conservation, or was that something that was kind of, we all, grow up hunting and things like that, but how did the conservation thing kind of come into play? Was that learned in your early days with waterfowl mountain management in Canada?
Yeah, I would say that was sort of something that grew on me as I got more involved. But, as a young kid, we were out planking and shooting and hunting, and that's really what grounded me. But then, like most hunters, we realized that at some point in our career that conservation is as much, if not more, than the hunting part of what we enjoy doing. And for me, conservation really kind of took precedent, and it led to a professional career in the business of wildlife conservation.
Yeah. Kind of a on topic, off topic question. What's your favorite species of waterfowl to hunt?
I love hunting puddle ducks.
Yeah.
Mallards, teal, widgeon, gadwall. Growing up in the prairie pothole region, I didn't own a boat.
Right.
All I had was a pair of waders and a shotgun, and that got me most places that I needed to be. And never really got into diver hunting or anything like that until later in life. I love that part of it now as much as any of it, but I think hunting puddle ducks was really kind of my favorite, still is one of my favorite passions.
Yeah, I just, growing up North Louisiana way back when, we had wood ducks was kind of the traditional thing. We'd get into these sloughs in the afternoon and catch these wood ducks coming in, and we hunted a lot of mallards, of course, being close to Arkansas when the flyway was kind of a little more centered towards Louisiana. But so growing up as a kid, I can remember, I think my first hunt was a squirrel hunt where my mom was a single mom and didn't remarry till much later in life. And she kind of focused on raising kids by herself. And she talked a neighbor guy into taking me hunting one day. And he's like, well, does he know how to hunt? Has he ever held a gun before? And picture let's see, how old was I? 8-year-old me walking through the woods of central Louisiana wearing a pair of white shrimping boots, which was all we could get, carrying my grandfather's single shot 410. And I think about it as you start to learn about more hunting, become a teenager, and start to, oh, there's decoys, oh, there's things like that. And Canada's famous for its waterfowl hunting. I mean, when you were a kid, were you using calls, or were you using decoys, or are you just kind of scouting and hunting?
You know, I remember, first of all, duck calls weren't necessary where
Yeah,
I grew up. The birds just wanted to be where they were. And in fact, being poor callers, we learned early on that it's better just to hush
yeah,
and let the ducks come in rather than call them and have them fly the other direction. Our decoy collection was, maybe a dozen old beat up uh, decoys that had lost all the paint. Half of them floated, half of them didn't. And, but that's what we used, kind of like you know, small amount of gear, a lot of big fun.
yeah, yeah.
Capital Farm Credit understands that there's something about the outdoors that pulls you in. Could be the fresh air, the colors, the smells, the animals, the freedom. It's all just a part of who you are. And with our recreational land loans, you can purchase land for whatever outdoor pursuit you please. That way, the outdoors won't just be in your soul, it'll also be in your name. To learn more, visit capitalfarmcredit.com. Together, we're better.
So as your career progressed, you became director of public policy for Ducks Unlimited, or DU, as most people know them. How did working, that kind of, I'm sure you did with I think it was Saskatchewan Environment was the other nonprofit you worked with. But when you started working with DU, you really did a deep dive into science and policy influence, and how did that affect your approach to conservation today?
I would have to say it really cemented my commitment to conservation when I, got into the science end of things in a deeper way. All that did was just kind of reinforce my my approach to hunting and conservation and understanding how intricately they are linked.
Yeah,
And then it wasn't until I went to work in Washington, D.C. for the what's now called the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies that I got exposed to the policy end of conservation, and just found that to be fascinating, challenging, introducing a political tone to conservation was something that had been foreign to me. I was so focused on the biology up until then, and not realizing that biopolitics is a word. It has a meaning, and it really kind of reflects what we do in the policy arena time and time again.
yeah. Um, so, in your opinion, what do you think, if you had to do a state of the address talk on it? And I know you speak publicly a lot and have over the years. How do you feel the current U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Interior Department, all these agencies that affect wildlife and habitat, how do you think they're doing now under this current administration?
I think we're lucky to have folks embedded in this administration who do understand pretty intimately what wildlife conservation is all about.
Mm.
The challenge is to connect those dots with the true political decision makers who often don't have that upbringing, that understanding, even have had the opportunity to be professionally trained in the wildlife field. So our job as professionals, I think, is to make that linkage between the scientists and the politicians, and make sure that they're speaking to one another in a common language, and that we are, in fact, trying to transmit what the average hunter, bird watcher, hiker, outdoor enthusiast wants to get accomplished, to make sure that they can continue to participate and enjoy the activities that they are most favored.
Yeah, and you and I are both very familiar with a group called the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation. I think that's probably one of the best advocacy groups that we have at the national level, because of the fact that they reach out to both sides of the aisle. They've got politicians from both sides of the aisle that love to hunt and fish and love the outdoors, and Jeff Crane is a personal friend of both of ours. Can you talk a little bit about how important the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation is and continues to be?
Yeah, I think through the years that organization has been able to kind of be apolitical, I say,
Yeah.
meaning that they haven't taken sides with one political persuasion or another. They've always tended to weigh in favor of the resource and represent what's best for the resource.
Yeah.
And communicate that to the decision makers, and they've done a very good job of it under Jeff's leadership. And I think that's key these days to being an effective lobbying organization, because we as everyday hunters and outdoor recreationists, we don't have a direct voice to our political leaders or our decision makers. We've got to rely on groups like Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation, Ducks Unlimited, Mule Deer Foundation. There's a whole variety of organizations that do great work in this arena.
Right.
Hunting Matters is presented by Copandero Indoor Archery Pistol and Rifle Range, your premier indoor archery pistol and rifle shooting destination. Located in Oak Ridge North, right next to the Woodlands, Copandero offers two 25-yard pistol ranges, a 100-yard rifle range, and a 25-yard archery range. Whether you're honing your skills or just starting, Copandero has everything you need, including rentals, classes, a retail store, an in-house cafe, and a VIP lounge. Join Copandero today for an unmatched shooting experience. To learn more, go to copandero.com.
So when you and I met 20 plus years ago, I'll just leave it at that. You were with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. How did you get started there? I mean, how did that come about?
That was an interesting step along the way. You said I forgot the adjective you've used.
Diverse.
Yeah. Others said I've had a tough time holding down a job, but
no.
I had an opportunity to move from working in the private sector to move back into working for state government in the form of Texas Parks and Wildlife. I held them in high regard. Had seen what they were capable of doing. They're a large agency overseeing a tremendously diverse state, as you know, having the fact that you live there and hunt there and recreate there. So it was a unique opportunity for me to move back into working for state government and being close to the constituents for which we serve as public servants. So it just kind of fell together, and I was fortunate to be selected from field of candidates to do that job, and enjoyed that work immensely for quite close to a decade.
Yeah. You started in the fisheries division. Is that right?
No,
No?
no, I didn't. I had two divisions: coastal fisheries, which is the marine side of things, and freshwater fisheries
Uh,
under my jurisdiction.
okay.
But I did my best to sample the resource when I could and provide some personal insight. But no, I'm not professionally trained as a fisheries biologist.
Okay.
More on the wildlife side.
Yeah. So moving to that state agency level, what were some of the things that, over the first few years that you encountered that you were like, that were surprising to you early in that part of your career? Or some early obstacles or challenges that you maybe just had no idea that you'd be faced with?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I brought to the job, I hope I did anyway, was the need for public-private partnerships to get things done.
Hmm.
And the agency it is a large one, has state parks under its umbrella as well as all the wildlife and fisheries jurisdictions, law enforcement. And so when I went to work for that agency, I think one of the first things I realized was the tremendous jurisdiction that they had over everything that we as outdoor sportsmen and women hold dear, and we wanted to make sure that we had a system there where we could hear from those constituents, and then do our best to adjust the regulations to reflect the best science, and also do our best to provide opportunities for people to enjoy those resources, and that can be a challenge.
Yeah.
In a state as big as Texas, it's a big challenge to make sure you're doing that right, and I think Texas Parks and Wildlife does it better than almost any. But every state, whether it's big or small, has opportunities, challenges that they've figured out a way to do. So I now work for an association of state fish and wildlife agencies, and have an even deeper appreciation for the work that state fish and wildlife and territorial organizations, agencies do. And that's only grown over time. I had no idea of the depth of just exactly how involved that was when I first started. But
Yeah.
quickly,
No, go ahead. You quickly.
well, I was going to say you've had the opportunity to sit on some of the committees that
Mhm.
the department set up to hear firsthand from users of the resource. And,
Yeah.
and I think those committees have proved invaluable for the agencies to use as a sounding board for new ideas, and to take feedback from their constituents to make sure that what they're doing is appropriate, well received, scientifically based, and is easy to understand and abide by.
Yeah. I think one thing that I want to talk about for our listeners and viewers of the podcast is that sometimes people forget that these state agencies like Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, they're state agencies. They are state funded. They're tied politically. I can remember times where I'm like calling out, "Hey, is Ross in?" He had to run over to the Capitol. You and your boss at the time, Carter Smith, and I mean, you guys are constantly at the beck and call of the governor or whoever. Just have to get up and go run, and I think that I think that the general public needs to have maybe, I'm not preaching, but a greater appreciation for what people at these state agency levels do and have to deal with, budgetary restrictions and things like that. Can you give us a little bit of insight to that to people who don't really understand? Because a lot of people see, parks and wildlife departments or fish and game services. That's a guy who's just out there trying to give me a ticket. They don't understand the full complexity of the agencies.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good observation, Joe. And I think you're right. The average person out there probably doesn't understand fully just what goes into those jobs, and it it's always a bit of a balance, because you've got all sides of an issue appealing to you to follow their desires, and what you have to do is find the right blend. Certainly, do what is the correct approach, and then work with those legislators or those constituents, whether they're an organized group of sportsmen and women, or a non-government organization whose mission is very narrow or very broad, and try and find the right balance to get either a new law passed, or make modifications to an existing law, or in the case of agencies, to promulgate the regulations for a law that's been passed by the legislature. So it is definitely a bit of a tightrope at times, and it's a challenge. You got to have tough skin to get through some of those battles, but hopefully, in all cases, not everyone, but in many of the cases, you come out in the right spot.
Yeah.
Are you looking for an investment that goes beyond the ordinary? Wildlife Partners is the nation's leader in breeding and consulting for the exotic wildlife industry. When you invest in wildlife, you're not just acquiring a 100% tax-deductible asset, you're playing a vital role in the conservation of endangered species. Do you own land? You can turn your ranch into a profitable wildlife-driven business. And even if you don't own land, that's no problem. Wildlife Partners offers unique opportunities for non-landowners to invest in conservation while enjoying significant tax benefits and potential cash flow.
Hey, I've spoken before the commission in the state of Texas before. Are most states structured like Texas, if not all of them, where you have your fish and game or wildlife parks and wildlife department, and then there's a commission, and then there's the government level? Or I'm just trying to educate the public here. Are most states structured like that?
Yeah.
So you're serving a bunch of masters.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes that commission might only be one individual. There's a couple of states that really just have one commissioner between them and the governor, or sometimes it's a full-fledged commission. And there's every variation in between, but most states are structured that way, and so many of those individuals that serve on those boards and commissions are appointed by either the Senate or the House, state House or state Senate, or the governor. And they're put there for a reason, because they hopefully reflect the views of a particular constituency that they happen to be representing. So it's generally it's a good practice to have those individuals seated where they are. It can get a little unwieldy at times. These commissioners, the commissions rather, can be upwards of, in some cases, 20 individuals. And, certainly in the teens is common. So you can imagine how difficult it is to get consensus out of a group of people who are really there, reflecting particular views on a topic. And again, for them, it's also challenging because they're constantly trying to find common ground and compromises as a commission or a board. So it's definitely always a work in progress, and takes a lot of diplomacy, a lot of being willing to find compromise. That's what this field is about in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Trying to find that middle ground.
Hunting Matters is presented by DEA Ranch. Are you looking for the ultimate South Texas hunting experience? Then look no further than DEA Ranch. DEA Ranch offers some of the best whitetail and exotic game hunts in South Texas year-round. Whether you're looking to fill your freezer or put that next hunting memory on the wall, their professional guides are focused on ensuring each client has a memorable and exciting hunting experience. DEA Ranch offers guided hunts, professional staff, chef-prepared meals, trophy preparation, and more. To learn more, go to dearanch.com. That's dearanch.com.
You hear stories. I mean, you're exposed to it every day. You know better than anybody. Hearing stories of commissions and our agencies that are positions being filled by people that don't hunt or have experience in the outdoors. Does that continue to be a problem? And how concerned are you about that? Because we got some of these states, and I'm not going to play politics. I'll just stay out of the liberal versus conservative conversation. But you've got states that have or had or continue to have people that have no experience with the outdoors being placed on these agencies and commissions. And I kind of like to hear your viewpoints on that.
Yeah, that can be a real problem. If you're there with really, number one, no experience in the fish and wildlife business, that means a steep learning curve for you. If you've been placed on those commissions really for your politics rather than your expertise or your viewpoint, then that can be a problem. Generally, from what I see, the closer those commissioners are to the resource, the better it works out for both the commission and the agency in terms of what gets enacted, what gets put in as policy or practice. And so it certainly spans a gamut, as you've seen. You read in the paper where things have gotten off the rails, and often it's because folks got away from what their their primary purpose is to provide guidance and feedback to the agency on all matters related to fish and wildlife conservation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate, that we as sportsmen and sportswomen don't have more of a say. I mean, I'm not saying that they all need to be elected positions, but it seems like people, like you said, sometimes people are chosen for their politics and just stuck on these commissions, and they're making regulations where they have no clue what they're talking about. And it's aside from what I do professionally for a living and what you do professionally for a living, as just somebody who loves the outdoors, it's frustrating.
Yeah, it can be. You've really, at times you got to sort of stop and realize what, might be the real obstacle to getting a particular law enacted or a rule made to promulgate a law that's been passed, and that can be as difficult as passing the law in the first place.
Mm.
State agencies generally don't pass laws; state legislatures do, but then it's up to the agency to take and put that recently passed piece of legislation into practice. Figure out the rules, how you're going to do it, where you're going to do it, who's going to do it, all of those things. And you rely on commissions to give you feedback and advice along the way. And sometimes that can be as challenging and as difficult as getting the law passed in the first place.
Right.
All of these folks now who are impacted by that decision, which isn't always taken into account when the law gets passed.
Yeah, it's sometimes like dropping a hand grenade in the middle of the room and they leave, and then you're left to deal with the fallout.
That's right. Yeah.
Nobody wants to imagine an emergency on a hunting trip, but when the unexpected happens, you want the team of medical and security experts at Global Rescue to be there for you. Global Rescue Operations Centers are staffed by experienced personnel, and you'll always speak to an expert on the first call. Global Rescue provides unparalleled capabilities to transport members to the hospital of their choice, not just the closest. So trade what-ifs for peace of mind with convenient travel services designed for the unexpected. Learn more at globalrescue.com/hunting matters.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the challenges of operating at that, at that level. One last Texas specific question. Observation I've made over the past several years in Texas, and I know you're now living in the Carolinas, but we all know Texas is your real home, Ross. I don't care if you're born in Canada. I mean, you just can't get away from Texas. But I know you have an opinion about this. Notice a lot of land being acquired by Texas Parks and Wildlife Department across the state of Texas over the past several years, and I don't know if that was prominent during your term with the department, or if it's happening more now. It just seems to me like it's more visible, more talked about, or maybe the land acquisitions are more than they have in the past. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a good thing for people who like to hunt and fish?
Yeah, I think it is a good thing, Joe, because it's providing opportunities for folks who don't own their own land to be able to go and recreate.
Mm.
And in a state like Texas, that's 95% privately owned, you can't just pull off the side of the road and unload your side-by-side and go ripping across somebody's land.
Yeah.
Or you can't just pull out your rifle and go start hunting. So I think this is a good thing. But this got started certainly even before my time with the department. It was, I think you would say, it accelerated under my time at the department. But there was only so much we could do with the funds available.
Sure.
And what's happened in the last, decade is really additional funds have been made available to go out and fuel those acquisitions. And state parks got a tremendous boost in funding a few years back with the release of the funds associated with the sporting goods sales tax. And that's specific for state parks in Texas. And so they've been able to really, do good things with that funding. And there's always opportunities to add to the list of public lands available. And in a state like Texas, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And even as I look across other agencies and, providing access and opportunity for young hunters and young and old hunters, it's an important deal. And the more the better, I think.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about SEAFWA, the Southeastern Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. So you're the executive director there. How long have you been doing that?
I started that job in March of 2022.
Well, I thought you were going to retire.
Well, one of these
I
days.
think when we first talked about it, you were going to retire back then, or this was going to be a part-time gig.
Yeah, it is still a part-time gig, but like any job, and you can relate to this too. Every job is what you make of it, and I love this work. I love the people I work with, and it doesn't feel like a job yet. I mean, at times it does,
Yeah.
but generally speaking, I'm still enjoying the work immensely. And at some point, there's going to come a time when I want to spend more time enjoying the outdoors than I do now. But for right now, it's a really good fit for me at this point in my career. And as long as SEAFWA will continue to have me as their executive director, I'm happy to and pleased to do it. So it is one of those jobs that at some point you've got to sort of turn the lights out and go to bed. There's another day tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot going on in this field, and part of my job is as executive director is to make sure that our member agencies are still able to do their job, which is they have the authority over fish and wildlife resources, the management, research, all of that within their state, except when it comes to migratory birds and marine mammals, which is really a federal jurisdiction, but federal agencies work very closely with the state agencies to get that done too. So it's a full-time job, and not just for me, but for our members as well, who
So for
buy
the
into this.
In the heart of nature, give your deer the nutrition they deserve with Record Rack Deer Feeds. The premium feeds support antler growth and overall herd health. Whether you're a wildlife enthusiast or a dedicated hunter, Record Rack Deer Feeds provide essential nutrients for a thriving herd. Choose Record Rack Deer Feeds for optimal deer nutrition. Visit recordrack.com to learn more.
Yeah, for those who don't know, what is the role of the organization? Is it getting together and talking about policy? Is it what's the role of SEAFWA as a unit?
Yeah. So our job is again to make sure that the state fish and wildlife agencies retain the authority to manage the fish and wildlife resources within their boundary. And sometimes that translates down into making sure that that federal policy reflects state management authority, that we don't have one kind of overstepping the other. We want to make sure that policies are being enacted fairly across jurisdictions, but recognizing that everyone is different. Our job is to do our best to make sure that there's good communication among all of our members. The Southeastern Association is one of 4 such associations across the country. And then there's another one called the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, which is a national association to which all state fish and wildlife agencies and territorial agencies belong. So, trying to make sure that all of that is kind of working in unison is important. And part of my job is to provide a service to those members to be able to communicate effectively, make sure that they've got the latest information available, that we continue to work to make sure that we've got the financial resources available to do our jobs.
Mm.
And you've heard of something called Pittman Robertson
Oh yeah.
or wildlife sport fish restoration programs. This is an important funding source for state fish and wildlife agencies to go out and do the work on behalf of the constituents. So making sure all of that's kind of working in tandem is what I spend probably half of my time doing.
Yeah. So you have deployed or employed the North American model of wildlife conservation throughout your career. It's obviously a very successful model. We're starting to see it duplicated in other countries as well, some of the principles and things like that. As we sit here today in 2026, do you still think it's the best model of wildlife conservation there is out there in the world? Or is there any ways that it can be improved? I know that we talk a lot about the Endangered Species Act and these other things like that there obviously can be improvements on, but kind of what is your opinion on North American model of wildlife conservation as it stands today?
I still think it's probably one of the best in the world. When we recognize that, the wildlife resource belongs to the people.
Mm.
And these laws, these tenets of the North American model are built around that fact, that premise. Other countries aren't so lucky.
Yeah.
And you've been to some of them, so have I, where the wildlife belongs to a certain group of people or a certain constituency, the North American model of conservation doesn't apply so well there because that basic tenet doesn't exist. And so as long as we've got wildlife that belongs to all the people, and the management of that is really left up to groups like state fish and wildlife agencies, federal agencies as well. As long as we've got that as a premise, I think the North American model is really kind of the gold standard. And one thing that does come to mind, and it's kind of underscored in a lot of my work, given the geography that I'm in, is the importance of private lands.
Mm.
And Texas has recognized this for 100 years, if not more, about the importance of the private landowner. But when you start overlaying the amount of private land in all of the states that belong to the Southeastern Association, with the exception of one state, every state has at least 80% of its land base is privately owned. And so, one thing that I think the North American, if you were going to try and improve on the North American model, it might be to give greater strength to the importance of private lands in terms of managing state fish and wildlife resources.
Mm.
But right now, it's really, I think, the envy of much of the world in terms of what the tenets are that go into how we manage fish and wildlife in North America, and it's pretty hard to improve upon.
Got it.
Are you looking for a smarter way to manage your document imaging and print environment? Dex Imaging delivers industry-leading printers, copiers, and fully managed print services designed to cut costs, boost productivity, and simplify your workflow. Whether you're a small business or a Fortune 500 company, DEX provides personalized local service with the power of a national network so you get fast, reliable support wherever you are. DEX gives back, proudly supporting organizations like Houston Safari Club Foundation by giving through profit sharing. DEX Imaging, smarter technology, exceptional service, proven results. Visit deximaging.com or email Adam Montgomery at adam.montgomery@deximaging.com.
Got it. Well, I mean, obviously, and I want to talk about this just here in a few minutes, but obviously, you look at the success stories of the wild turkey in the U.S. and other game species. I mean, Florida black bear hunts and Louisiana black bear hunts now. Who would have thought that 10 years ago?
Right.
And so happy to see it. I mean, while the tags and the access is limited, it's still happening, and that's because of this model.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
You can point to so many things, North American waterfowl populations, you gave a couple of examples of terrestrial species. Think about white-tailed deer.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't too long ago that seeing a whitetail on the landscape in some of these states was a rarity. And now, in most cases, we're trying to manage overpopulations as opposed to limited populations of whitetails.
Yeah, I remember as a kid where I grew up hunting those areas in the pine forest of northeast Louisiana. I mean, you saw a white-tailed deer when I was a kid. It was like, whoa, like a ghost walking out of the darkness. I mean, it was crazy. But now, you're seeing these big deer shot in Louisiana. It's like, you sure that's a Louisiana deer? It's amazing. You talked a little bit about funding earlier, so I don't want to go back and visit the Pittman-Robertson Act, but something it's a common conversation around our circles is the funding that's important. That's important to what we do through the Pittman-Robertson Act. A few years back, there was a huge push and a huge search for the R3 movement: recruitment, retention, and reactivation of hunters. Is that still alive today?
Yeah, it is, and I think the importance of ensuring that activity continues to take a prominent role is even more important now than it ever was, because of the aging out of the baby boomers now. And is there an equivalent number of hunters coming in to backfill that void? And the answer generally is no. We've not been able to keep pace with the number of hunters that are aging out or not participating in the sport for one reason or another. Still only about 4% of the U.S. population hunts.
Yeah.
And, that has been declining over the last decade or two. And so the R3 movement, as you mentioned, it is got to play an even more important role now, I think, as we continue to lose the hunting fraternity as a percent of the American population. There's some bright spots on the horizon when we look across, age groups and ethnic groups in terms of which ones are increasing, which ones are holding their own, which ones are declining. We need to understand the science, not the biological science as much anymore, but we need to understand the social and economic science that's involved in our profession. And the sooner we can understand that, even more than we do, I think we can employ programs that will hopefully continue to add numbers and individuals to to those that part of the population that's out there hunting and fishing, hiking, bird watching, all of those things. Because if we don't, pretty soon we're going to become basically, not relevant.
Yeah.
And that's a concern for just about every state fish and wildlife agency that I talk to is, how do we stay relevant in this changing social environment?
Yeah, and I think it's when you and I have talked about this many, many times, and you've been in multiple conversations with other groups and individuals about it as well. I think it's incumbent upon us as people who hunt and fish to recruit others, not to just say, hey, man, because I've been on a deer leash, for several years now together, and what do? I pick up the phone, I call Ross, or Ross calls Joe and says, "Are you going out this weekend?" "Yeah, let's go." We gotta start inviting our non-hunting friends that may have an interest, or our non-fishing friends that may have an interest, even at the adult level. I think it's a responsibility of all of us out there that enjoy the outdoors, just to recruit others to do it. I mean, pickle. I hate to even use this example because I've actually physically never played it before, but pickleball grew because other people saw other people playing it and invited them to come play with them. I think we should use the same philosophy with hunting and fishing. Come out to our pickleball court. It's a lot more beautiful. There's a lot more to see, and it's a lot more fun. But those watching and listening, I think it's incumbent upon you and me and Ross and everybody out there to invite others to join us, whatever that looks like, whether it's checking game cameras, filling feeders, whether it's depending on where your state is, what state you hunt in, or it's going out and observing wildlife, whatever that is. Because if you don't open the door and invite somebody in, they're not going to come in.
Gunworks just launched a new rifle system. It's called Index. It's sized for adventure and engineered for extremes. With barrel lengths as short as 16 inches and a folding stock that collapses to an ultra-short profile, the Gunworks Index fits nicely in a UTV, a float plane, or across the seat of your truck without sacrificing accuracy. The Index features a built-in ARCA and pick rail for use on tripod or bipod, and a night vision rail to ensure you're ready for any scenario. The Gunworks Index delivers magnum capability in the most compact chassis rifle system on the market. Visit gunworks.com to learn more.
Yeah, and you've touched on one of the biggest barriers to hunter recruitment, retention, and reactivation, and that is the lack of mentors.
Mm-hmm.
Mentors, people like you and me who've been doing this for decades, taking somebody who has a desire to get involved,
Yeah.
Taking them and giving them access, which is the other number one obstacle, is, now I've done a firearm safety course. I'm really fired up over this. Now, where do I go?
Yeah.
And, it's access, mentorship. These things really have a role to play in making sure that there's somebody there to help those that want to get engaged. Kick the door open for them, give them an opportunity, take them to your hunting spot. If they don't have, the proper equipment, making sure that they've got that. All those sorts of things are key to maintaining the sport that we know and enjoy.
Yeah, that's as we talk about, as you mature and grow as a hunter or an outdoorsman, that's something I find now that I enjoy more than anything. You and I are turkey freaks. I call you the turkey whisperer because I've yet to see a bird you couldn't call in. But that's one of my favorite things over the past several years is I didn't come to turkey hunting until later in life, but introducing or taking somebody out turkey hunting for the first time. And then, you and I have a mutual friend that I took out on his first turkey hunt, and he shot a turkey, and he's like, "Man, I'm hooked."
Yeah.
And just, of course, I won't mention his name, but, it just so happens that I took him out, and then I think it was 3:00 in the afternoon. By 3:30, we had a bird on the ground. Like, it doesn't happen like this hardly ever, but it kind of spoiled him. It's like, a 10-year-old shooting a 200 class deer. But it was fun because, he stood up. He's like, "Man," he goes, "how do I do this now? I got to do this." And that's my favorite part of hunting now, is introducing people to new stuff.
Yeah, it is for me too, Joe. And you're right. You spoilt that guy thinking, hey, this is nothing to this.
Oh
Give me
yeah,
something
this
challenging.
ain't so hard.
Sometimes you'll go, years before you actually are able to pull the trigger and successfully harvest an animal, no matter what we're talking about.
Yeah,
But I'm like you now. I get as much enjoyment out of seeing somebody get excited, um, even if they didn't get a shot. Their hearts pounding. That turkey was right there,
yeah,
10 feet away from them, and or that elk was almost within, uh, you know, uh, shot distance. So we've got to make sure that we don't lose sight of that, as that's very, very important. Now I see it as in terms of making sure that we're filling the funnel,
yeah.
if you will, with new enthusiastic hunters and fishermen, anglers, uh, and understand the science that goes into some of that. We're doing a better job. We work with a lot of companies whose that's their forte. That's
Yeah.
what they do best. They can inform us as managers, as heads of organizations who are focused in on making sure that we continue to enjoy the sport that we so love.
Right, right. This episode of the Hunting Matters podcast is brought to you by B&B Taxidermy. Since 1983, the Baird family at B&B Taxidermy have been the premier experts in trophy mounts. Whether it's African, North American, global, or exotic, B&B Taxidermy will provide design, artistry, and attention to detail that you won't find anywhere else. B&B Taxidermy can also design and decorate your trophy room, showcase, or office with custom dioramas built to suit your space. Check out their showroom of exotic trophies on Jones Road in Houston, or visit their website at bbtaxidermy.com. B&B Taxidermy, proud supporters of the Hunting Matters podcast and Houston Safari Club Foundation. We've already zipped through almost an hour here, and there's so many hunting stories and things that I did want to talk to you about. We're just not going to have time today. But you've hunted. I mean, you've been blessed to be able to hunt a lot of different places now: Alaska, Namibia, Argentina, Spain, New Zealand, South Africa. How has that broadened or changed your perspective on the world and hunting and conservation from more of a global perspective now that you've been able to experience all those different places?
Yeah, it's brought a new perspective for me, that as a teenager grabbing my gun and going rabbit hunting or duck hunting. I never really, at that early age, um, didn't have the appreciation that I now have, because I'm blessed to have had the opportunity to really see how other parts of the world manage their resources, how those wildlife populations flourish or not under certain management regimes. Gives me an appreciation for how the people of those countries value or don't value wildlife to the same extent that we do. So, the short answer is it's brought a new perspective for me that has really broadened my horizons, broadened my perspective on the role of hunting as a tool for wildlife conservation. It's I think underscored the importance of groups like the Houston Safari Club Foundation in making sure that we continue to support hunting as a business in some respects.
Yeah.
Certainly as an avocation for many people around the world, and again, without imposing my personal biases, my personal perspective, now I know that what is good for wildlife in Texas isn't necessarily good for wildlife in Argentina
Mm,
or Spain or you name the country.
yeah.
And so now that I've seen sort of these other countries and how they manage and value wildlife, it's given me a deeper appreciation for just how important it is for us in North America, how blessed we are in North America to have what we have. And the North American model of conservation works for us. And, it's just, I'm very, very blessed to be a part of it, as I know you are too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So as we wrap up, I want to do something called last hunt, next hunt. What was the last hunt you went on? And I know because we were actually talking on the phone when you were there, but tell our audience about your where you were on your last hunt.
Yeah, I was in one of the northern, or pardon me, not northern, but one of the provinces in Argentina, Corrientes,
Hmm.
hunting Argentine water buffalo
Wow.
and black buck, which are a species. The latter are a species that we know well in Texas.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, that was a cool, kind of exciting deal in terms of the water buffalo. Never hunted them before. Seeing a 3,000-pound animal that really looks at you like you don't belong in this landscape.
Right.
Um, it can be exciting. I've not had a chance to hunt a Cape buffalo in Africa. Maybe that's something I'll get to do someday, but I certainly got a flavor for what that adrenaline rush is.
Yeah.
And you come face to face with these wild, dangerous big game.
Yeah. What's next on the hunt list?
You know, I think another trip back to South Africa is in my cards. I love South Africa,
Yeah.
and would really want to go back there and spend some more time with our friends and just kind of enjoying the landscape a little bit more. Never been to Victoria Falls. Plan to do that. So mix a little bit of tourism in with the hunting experience this time.
Yeah. And of course, turkey season's coming.
And turkey season not far away. That'll actually happen before the Africa trip. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I copycatted you. I went out and bought your slate call. So you're going to have to teach me how to use it this year.
You think it's just in the call, eh, Joe?
No, I don't. No, I want the technique. I'm going to be sitting side by side with the master with the exact call. It's going to need some breaking in, but I always welcome more lessons and always enjoy thoroughly watching you call. And I think probably the most important lesson you taught me is you don't need to overcall turkeys.
That's right.
It's a
Yeah, well,
conversation. It's more of kind of a whisper than I think most turkey hunters overcall when they first start doing it because they get excited. You call and they call back, and you start calling, they call back, and then you want to call some more. And then
The Houston Safari Club Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that supports the future of hunting and conservation. Wildlife and habitat conservation, youth education and outdoor experiences, scholarships, and anti-poaching efforts are just a few of the programs supported by this organization. Monthly events, an annual convention, award-winning publications, networking opportunities, and valuable resources for hunting knowledge are just a few of the benefits of being a member of Houston Safari Club Foundation. If you're searching for a group of people dedicated to protecting the future of hunting, look no further. Join Houston Safari Club Foundation today at wehuntwegive.org or call 713-623-8844.
as we kind of wrap up the show, what is your advice for new turkey hunters as far as calling goes?
Well, certainly be patient, and I think you just hit on one. If the turkey doesn't respond, the answer is usually stop calling rather than lay into it,
Yeah.
because there's a good chance that gobbler is silently walking in to your direction just is not calling.
Yeah.
Be patient, wait for that to happen. Don't move.
Yeah.
Don't even scratch your nose.
Yeah.
So I look forward to spending some time in the turkey woods with you, Joe,
Yeah.
and let's plan it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, how many times have you and I been sitting there just kind of picking our nose, and all of a sudden we got a couple of Toms walk up on us, and we're like, oh, it's not going to happen. I can specifically remember the last time, because you and I did a 9-day turkey tour last year.
Yeah, that was cool.
And we hunted at least 3 separate properties. And I think it was the last hunt of the last day, the temperature dropped down in the 40s or something like that, and it was windy. And we're like, it ain't going to happen. And we were on a morning hunt, and lo and behold, 2 Toms walked right out in front of us, and they hadn't talked to us at all. I mean, you and I have both been hunting together. I mean, we've both been victims. They'll just walk out of nowhere and not say anything, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a turkey right there, 10 yards away.
Yeah, that's so cool when
Yeah.
that happens. Yeah,
It's one of my favorite things now. I just love it. I love turkey hunting now. It's just, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like all kinds of hunting, but it really makes my heart pound out of my chest when you get those birds in with a 10 yards. So, well, folks, that's all the time we have this week. Ross Melinchuk, my old dear friend's been our guest on Hunting Matters this week. Thank you guys, Ross. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you spending the time to talk with us this week. And
thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it, and look forward to spending some time with you in the blind this year.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, we'll see you next week on Hunting Matters, brought to you by the Houston Safari Club Foundation. I need to get some water. As we wrap up this episode, we wish you happy hunting and safe travels. Take care, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Hunting Matters is a Houston Safari Club Foundation production. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For questions or more information, email us at info@wehuntwegive.org.